Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's report launch. We're really looking forward to having a very awesome conversation, connecting zero waste to climate change and reduce emission reduction at a global level. We will give it a few minutes to allow everyone into the room before we start. And while we do that, please feel free to use the chat box to introduce yourself, where you're dialing in from, and let's get comfortable while we wait for others to join. Thank you. Great, thanks. I see we have people from different parts of the world. We got New Zealand, UK. I see Durban in here, Scotland. Please keep it coming. Let us know where you're calling in from. We can see Kenya as well. So we have quite a global audience: Bangladesh, Zimbabwe, Ukraine. Welcome, everybody. Really looking forward. I'll still give it a few more minutes, and we will get started. And for those who are joining, please use the chat box to tell us where you're calling in from, the work you do. I think that'll be interesting. And yeah, we wait a few minutes before we officially start. Thanks. Great. It's nice to see also very familiar organizations and groups in the virtual room. So very excited for this. Welcome, everybody. I think it's nice to, when you put events like this together, to see allies of the movement who have been advocating, pushing for the same cause, all coming together for this big launch. Very exciting report. Really looking forward to seeing your inputs and hearing from the audience, but also the amazing panel that we have with us today. So before I start quickly, we have a community, quite a number of people joining us from Ukraine. I think for translation purposes, I'll quickly pass it on to Iryna to quickly explain to them how they can get a translation. So Iryna, I'll pass it over to you before I even introduce myself and get started, so no, we don't leave anyone behind.
Вітання всім. Thank you, Joshua. I'll switch into Ukrainian for a bit. Товариство, для того, щоб слухати сьогоднішній вебінар українською мовою, будь ласка, ви можете увімкнути, власне, переклад українською мовою. Для цього потрібно натиснути на зображення глобуса внизу екрану та вибрати українська у складному меню.
Great. Thank you, Iryna. So, in the hopes that everyone can understand and follow the conversation, a big welcome to everyone. My name is Joshua Mponsem. I'm the founder of Green Africa Youth Organization. I work on both circular economy and climate change, mostly through my organization in Ghana, working with waste workers, informal waste sector, municipalities in driving zero waste at the city level, but also in urban areas. Today, we are gathered for really a game-changing conversation on how zero waste is directly linked to our quest for climate action and reducing global emissions. I think it's a moment where everyone have been looking forward to, because over the past few years, there has been a lot of conversation around how do we bring these two communities together, climate and environment together. So that is really exciting. And we have this really fresh off the press report that gives us context to this. So really excited to be here, and welcome to you all again. I'll take a few minutes to go over the details of the session for what you can expect. So we're going to have a 1-hour session. We will have, first of all, a presentation that goes into the report and its findings. And then we will have open up to everyone to really share your questions using the Q&A function on Zoom. So you'll be able to access that to share your questions. If you don't see it, you can click more, the 3 dots on your screen, you go to more, and then you will see Q&A. So use that to really get your questions through. If you use the chat box, it will be very, very difficult for us to sort of be able to get the questions to the panel that we have with us. So do as much as possible to use the Q&A function to send your questions through. If you have any technical challenges, you will see there are 2 people on this call who are named GAIA Tech. So feel free to text any of them, private message them, and they will take care of you and make sure that you're able to sort of get your messages through. The urgency of this meeting or this webinar and the report that we have is, of course, the fact that we are at a point in time where the climate crisis is the biggest crisis we see. But the climate crisis has different layers to it, right? Which is typically not talked about: inequality, social injustice, social inequalities. But part of that is sort of this quest of net zero future, low carbon future. And part of that is ensuring that all sectors that contribute to this are getting enough attention and getting the pressure to really go clean. And waste is one of those sectors. So we're really here to raise the profile of zero waste solutions, get the awareness on that, how it links really strictly to climate action and reducing emissions, but also give you a tool and a report that you can really use in your advocacy to really push and demand for more sustainable waste management practices, and really advocating for zero waste to reduce emissions, but also deliver a much better livelihood for everybody who live in the communities where we all come from. So this is the framing for why we are here, and many, many other more which the panel will unpack. And this is very important to us. So it's really an interesting point in time, and congratulations to the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, GAIA, which most of you are familiar with, for providing this very clear report, which is also the most comprehensive evidence to date on how zero waste is very, very critical to fighting the climate crisis, but also, again, delivering justice, creating jobs, and making sure there's resilience in cities. To kick us off, I will quickly introduce our panelists, which you see on your screen. So I will start with Dr. Erwin, who is a senior researcher at the Urban Future Center at the Durban University of Technology. I mean, Kira has done a lot of work, both academia side, but also practically with communities in Durban and South Africa as a whole, on really how to drive zero waste, and her work on the WAVIC zero waste team, which is delivering really sustainable and co-designing sustainable practices for zero waste in communities, is fantastic, and we're looking forward to hearing from her today. We also have Jagajeevan, who is the executive director of Grameena, Padana, Kendram, a village study center in India, who is really a leader in the people science movement to promote decentralized governance and local level planning for decades. And his work and his experience over the years is really essential to the work that we are doing at the global level when it comes to working really with local communities in driving change, but also in decision making when it comes to sustainability and really to the context of economic development and also zero waste in this context. And we have Iryna Myronova, who is also the executive director of Zero Waste Lviv and founding member of Zero Waste Alliance in Ukraine. And as the name of her organization suggests, she's really a zero waste champion and has been championing this work, again, with communities in Ukraine, but also serving as part of different groups in Ukraine, pulling together a number of years of experiences working on waste and with sort of other larger groups like the World Wildlife Fund in Ukraine and other organizations to drive this work. And then lastly, we have Marielle Viella, who is the director of Global Climate Program at GAIA. And I see Marielle as really an epitome of this work because her work sits between both climate and zero waste. And her experience following the climate conversation under the UNFCCC program, going to the COPs and understanding how the policy framework works there, but also linking that to some of which you would know with UNEP and the UNIA process and how that sector also goes, and bringing those two together to drive change when it comes to linking zero waste to climate is very essential. And she's also joining us today and would be the first presenter to actually give us a very good overview of the findings. So I've spoken quite a lot, giving you sort of letting you know who is in the room and who is with us, who will be talking, what the session will look like. I will quickly pass it over to Marielle so that she can give an overview of the findings of this research, but also really introduce all the audience to GAIA for those who might not know. So Marielle, I will humbly pass it on to you, and really looking forward to hearing the findings from your side. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Joshua. And I'm very happy to be here today with you all. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Marielle Viella. I'm the director of the Global Climate Program with GAIA. And I am going to briefly introduce GAIA. We are a worldwide alliance of more than 800 groups and NGOs in more than 92 countries. And our members work on waste issues, but also in relation to other environmental and social justice issues, environmental justice, equity, jobs, economy, etc. And so we see waste as a systemic failure. And so we hope that our work and zero waste solutions drive an economic shift towards justice and sustainability. Today, I'm very excited to be introducing our new report, Zero Waste to Zero Emissions, How Reducing Waste is a Climate Game Changer. As we know, as Joshua was saying, waste is really connected to climate change, and our work connects to this in many different ways. And in this publication, we've made an effort to bring all these connections together and give a comprehensive overview of how zero waste is a solution to climate change mitigation, adaptation, and provides other additional benefits. We hope that this is going to be useful for policymakers and decision makers all over the world, and also for our members to have an advocacy tool that supports their local campaigns at the local and national and regional level. So for those that like to see the punchline up front, here it is. This report tells us that zero waste strategies can reduce emissions by an average of 84% by 2030. That would be the same as 1.4 billion tons of CO2 equivalent, which would be the same as taking 300 million cars, which is all the cars that are in the US, off the road. That's the bottom line of this, the potential of zero waste to climate change mitigation. But let's unpack this a little bit. How does this work? How does waste contribute to climate change? Therefore, how we can reduce these emissions? Well, one very important element of this story is methane. Methane is pretty much the most important right now. Methane traps 82 times as much heat as CO2, but it only lasts 12 years in the atmosphere. Therefore, reducing methane right now is the fastest way to put brakes on global warming. In the waste sector, this methane comes from the organic waste, when the organic waste that comes mainly from food waste, but also green waste and others. Organic waste that has been landfilled is put in the landfill, and therefore it produces methane. The key here is to avoid these organic waste going into the landfills and make sure that we have a clean stream of organic waste that can be put into a high impact treatment like composting, for example. And we can take the composting, the compost, and put it in the agriculture, in the lands, and restore the soils and improve crop production, increase nutrients in the soil, increase the carbon sequestration of the soil, etc. It provides a lot of benefits for the soil. So this is a really important component, and the report goes on and a lot of detail into this. But this is basically almost just like the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, because if we go into the upstream solutions and recycling, and we realize that waste is basically products that have been made with natural resources, that have been extracted and processed and distributed and consumed and so on, we will see how in a product we see the accumulated emissions of a whole life cycle. And when we understand this materials economy and we see all of the sectors involved in it, actually the emissions that are involved go up to 70% of the anthropogenic emissions. So we see that waste is not only the waste in the sense that the end of life of the products, the disposal stage. Actually, waste is things that have gone throughout the economy, and it involves all of our production and consumption system. The report is organized in 3 big chapters. It looks at climate mitigation, adaptation, and additional benefits. And it looks at all the positive impacts of zero waste systems. We have also included 8 case studies. It looks at models and scenarios for 8 cities that show the effects of zero waste strategies, demonstrating that actually zero waste systems are very adaptable, because the cities that we present here, these 8 case studies, are very different contexts, different countries, different levels of wealth, different climates, different political systems. And we see how zero waste can work in all these contexts and how it can be so adaptable. To do this work, we have leveraged our relationship with members in those places, and they have had a critical and instrumental role in sourcing the data and also in verifying precisely the data. And together with them, we have elaborated the zero waste plan that is realistic to achieve in the next 8 years. So we have made this calculation with a greenhouse gas emissions calculator, comparing the current scenario with a zero waste scenario. And that's given us a picture of what zero waste could look like in that city and what benefits it could have. Some key takeaways. One key takeaway that I was mentioning already: composting is a climate game changer. As I was saying, keeping the organics out of the landfill is a key step, and therefore making sure that we can use the organic waste to do compost and bring those nutrients back to the soil. it's super important to make sure that this process is of quality to ensure source separation, collection, and treatment of organics. And this, together with recycling and upstream solution, can go really high in the mitigation strategy. The other key takeaway that I want to bring is that energy recovery is not an effective mitigation strategy. We're talking about landfill gas capture, which it's a worry for so many people looking at landfills all over the world. But landfill gas capture tends to be unreliable, allowing a lot of fugitive methane emissions to escape. That's why keeping the organics out of the landfill is a much more important priority. On the other hand, waste to energy incineration is a major source of greenhouse gas emission, and really it's only anaerobic digestion that works out positively in terms of a high impact treatment with organic waste that produces energy, because primarily it's avoiding these methane emissions from landfills, and it does produce energy as well. So just to give one taste of one of the case studies, Seoul in South Korea, which is a really interesting city. It has a very robust system for source separation and recycling. It has very little methane from landfills, and it's honestly it's like it has statistics for their system of waste management. It's quite impressive. However, it does rely significantly on waste to energy incineration. So the zero waste path for Seoul would really involve a lot of waste prevention in the first place, reducing a lot of the single-use plastic, for example, that's being used, and therefore ensure that there can be a phase out of incinerators. And in this way, it could achieve 885% of greenhouse gas reductions in the waste sector in Seoul. Then we go to adaptation. This is a dimension that we've worked on this report, that we've developed in this report for the first time. We don't normally think of waste as a strategy for climate change adaptation, and yet there's really significant connections. I'm going to mention one here, which is flooding. Flooding, which we know climate change is exacerbating extreme weather events, and so many cities are suffering from more frequent disruption of the systems because of flooding. One of the key drivers for this flooding is plastic waste that is blocking the drainage system of the city. So we've seen how policies around single-use plastic, that specifically bans on single-use plastic, have been coming up and have been a tool, an effective tool that many policymakers have been using, and that have proved to be a great contributor to mitigating and to reducing the flooding, and therefore to helping cities to adapt to climate change. We have, I want to mention here the case study that we've done on Lviv. I'm so happy that Iryna is here today to tell us more later about the amazing work that they've been doing in Ukraine. It must be said, in spite of everything, in spite of the challenges that they are facing, and perhaps the last thing that we are thinking is like, oh yeah, in Ukraine they do zero waste, and in Lviv they do zero waste. Yes, they do despite everything, which even kind of makes them even more of a heroes of that what they are already. So yes, Lviv, it's also a really interesting story. They had this big fire in the landfill in 2016, which triggered the change of direction for the city. And the city started with a source separation of organics and creation of compost, which precisely has this effect, this connection to climate change adaptation, sorry, when we have compost and we can use it for agriculture and we support the health of the soils, we are increasing food productivity, we are increasing the capacity of the soil to resist the impacts of climate change, and therefore helping climate change adaptation. And also, as I was saying, the third chapter is looking at all the additional benefits of zero waste, looking at other environmental benefits and the social, economic, and political, because today we know that we cannot just think of emissions or adaptation. We really need to make sure that all the solutions that we bring forward to climate change are also beneficial in all these other aspects. Precisely, very much. We know that climate change is not just the result of environmental factors, but precisely is very much the result of political decisions that have to do with justice and with economics and social dimensions. So very much very important to also look at all of this. And just to mention here, one of the key aspects, and which is jobs. The importance of creating zero waste systems and the impact that it can have for job creation. And I'm going to refer to a report that we published like last year, actually, which provides all the detailed numbers on how many jobs can be created in zero waste. And in that study, we saw how zero waste systems can create 10 to 60 times as many jobs as systems that are based on disposal methods like landfills and incinerators. I just to refer here to Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, where there is a very vibrant, thriving scene of informal recyclers, waste pickers that are the de facto recycling system in the city. And thanks to GAIA member Nipe Fagio and other leaders in the community are leading the zero waste efforts and supporting the creation of cooperatives of waste pickers and increasing the jobs and improving the livelihoods of the people that work in this sector and pushing the policies so that there is more formalization, there is more recognition and more compensations by the government. So essentially, we're seeing that the waste sector, which within the climate world tends to be sort of the not so important sector, is actually recently increasingly put in the spotlight. And the COP27 that's coming up in Egypt is going to be definitely one important topic. As we know that Egypt, the host of the COP, is putting forward an initiative called 50 by 2050. It's a global waste initiative that is pledging African nations to get to 50% recycling rate by 2050. This is an initiative that's going to be launched during COP27. And we come from COP26, where there was the launch of the Global Methane Pledge, which brought 122 countries to pledge methane emissions reductions. And this has brought a lot of attention to landfills as a source of methane. So the question really is, how are we going to implement these pledges? It's really time to start talking about the specific solutions for climate mitigation, adaptation, and other co-benefits in the waste sector, and make sure that we are clear on what are these solutions and we move forward in this direction. We will be at COP27. We will have a zero waste hub. We will have several events. So if you are there, please come and join us, and it'll be a pleasure to talk more in that context. Just to sum up, the three key main ideas that I would like to share with you is that number one, organic waste and plastic are big carbon emitters. Therefore, dealing with these two waste streams is really important and instrumental. What we see throughout this report with the case studies that I've mentioned and other documentation that we have from all over the world, zero waste strategies are fast, are cost effective, and are efficient in reducing emissions. Not only this, they can also offer a myriad of benefits like improving jobs, strengthening the soils, improving climate resilience, and so more and so forth. So I hope that this gave you a proper overview of our publication. Please have a look and don't hesitate to get in touch if you have any more questions. I look forward to the discussion, and thank you so much to everyone for being here today.
Thank you very much, Marielle. This is fantastic. So first of all, congratulations to the GAIA team and to everyone who contributed to this report. It was very interesting. As you were presenting, there were some slides that came up and people immediately reacted, the ones particularly around job creation and job opportunities. And I think that is the evidence that in many places where waste management is emitting, it's a risk actually to communities, whether it be via landfills, whether it be via dump sites, it's a public health risk. And it's not good for communities. These are the same places where job creation and employment opportunities are needed the most. So it's really a win-win situation if we could really drive the zero waste agenda and have it adopted. And this leads me to the next set of the conversation. So for those who want the report, a link has been shared in the chat. Everything that is shared in the slide is in the report. So really get the report, get the more sort of the details, right? I think Marielle gave us an overview, a summary, but you'll get all the case studies, all the details in the report. Really try to look into that because that is very interesting for your own work and to get a better overview and understanding of what really went into this report. I want us to move into our panel conversation now. And I really want to start with this question of, if it is that great and that good, why are we not doing it yet, right? I mean, if it is that beautiful, and Iryna in Ukraine is doing fantastic, and you got this beautiful case study. Kira is doing the same in South Africa. Why are we not scaling? So now we have a report, we have evidence, we have something to really hold tangible. But where do we go from here? So I will let all the panelists really come in few minutes, 1 minute or two, on your take on this, because that is the first thing that comes to my mind. If it is that beautiful, if it is that great, why are we not doing it? Where do we go from here to make sure that this actually gets done? So I'm going to start with you, Iryna, because your case study was there. All right, you got all the claps and everything. Everyone is like cheering you up and all of that. So how do we take this forward? Where do we go from here?
Hi, everyone, and thank you for all the support from around the world that goes to Ukraine these days. Answering your question, I would say that what we are doing, we are creating the case. And I think that what this report is doing as well is setting the case. It's presenting different cities' approach from all over the globe. And then we have places around the globe where all the politicians, the decision makers can come, the waste managers can come and see and change their perspective toward the more zero waste approaches. On the other hand, as it is very decentralized process that involves a lot of stakeholders, it takes time to develop necessary relations, capacities, and then it will blossom, I'm sure.
Thanks. I guess the key word here is relationship building, patience, and evidence. So now we have evidence. We need to build the right relationships to be able to convince and the patience to really develop the systems that are in place. But we don't have time, I agree, we need patience, we need to build relationships, but we also don't have time. So I'm going to go to you, Kira. Like, where do we go from here?
Thank you, Joshua. You can give me the hard question, no problem. I'm not sure if I'm going to have a simple answer, but I think that one of the difficult things for municipalities, and I am talking here about the context in South Africa, but I think it's shared elsewhere, is that it's also a time when municipalities can be very low on resources. They themselves are quite cash strapped. And there can be some hesitancy around what it means to restructure their own systems, because it does require that. It requires shifts in thinking, but shifts in budget line, shift in timeline, etc. But we are very optimistic because I think this can be done. And you're right, with a sense of urgency. So partly, what we're attempting to do is do some demonstrable pilots to say it's absolutely possible. The push for scale up does require those shifts in the municipal system. And partly what we are trying to do is also reach out and say, look, together we're more likely to get this done. So to try again, it is relationship building. This report, I think, is very important because empirical data always helps your case. But more importantly, it's got a set of practical ways in which you could move forward. And our city in Durban has got a mandate to reach that in their own climate action plan. And yet we don't see enough movement in that direction. So, you know, a report like this is say, look, and this is how you might do it quite quickly. So we are hopeful that, and we are going to launch this in Durban and try and get some of those municipal officials in the room to show what's possible. So thanks to GAIA for that.
Great, Grameena, thanks, Kira. I think one thing that is important, you know, when you don't have time, you need to build relationship, you need to be patient, and all of that is having concrete, practical sort of examples and really step-to-step approaches that people can take and operationalize. And I think through that, you start a movement building approach towards a particular solution going to scale. So that is really fantastic and great work that you're doing in Durban. Okay, so now I'm going to go to Jagajeevan and ask, what is your take on this? So where do we go from here?
You see, actually, the decentralized waste management system or zero waste management system need to get good support and good agreement with the government or the people who are the policymakers or rulers or executives, because they have a little bit concern on that this zero waste program. Why they have the concern? First of all, the funding agencies, they are mainly pushing for this incineration or landfill or centralized waste management system. That is the first thing. The second one is the convenience of the people, means they need to educate the people for changing their behavior and attitude. That's the second thing. And third one is their concern on, is it benefit? Is it benefit to the environment? Is it create employment? These doubts they have. How is in Kerala actually? We achieve little bit on this decentralized waste management or zero waste approach because of we got a political agreement from the government. That is why it will take. Because now we can take this report, because this report is covered a very comprehensive approach in all aspects, the technological aspect and the social aspect and employment aspect. It's a comprehensive report is benefit to us for the lobbying, to advocacy, or to create new education tools, and also to develop a new participatory social engineering process. If I want to develop a different kind of these tools, I need the information, and also I need clear-cut solutions. I can take these things from this report. So I'm very happy to this team, the people who are working behind this report. Actually, it is a powerful tool for the promotion of zero waste strategy, and also from zero waste to the zero emission. That is actually, it is a new slogan for us. First of all,
it's been there already. It's been there already, and the sort of a new slogan to really build momentum around it. Still staying with you, you know, you've been doing this work in Kerala for some time, and you have results. And I would be very keen for you to share with us what has been the impact of your work in terms of employment, because, like I said, I think in many places where sort of waste is a nuisance, it's also the places where employment opportunities are very fantastic. So if you could just elaborate a little bit more about the impact of this work in Kerala on employment particularly, that'd be very fantastic.
You see, just I will give an overall picture of the present situation. In Kerala, actually, we have 913 Gram Panchayat, local body, and near 93 urban municipalities. And every local body have an enterprise group for door-to-door collection of non-bio waste. It will come more than 30,000 entrepreneurs, 28,000 entrepreneurs. And another set of people who are working in the MCF, material collection facility, and RRF for segregation, sorting, baling this activity. It will come near 2,000 people. And also 1,500 people, it may become to the 2,000 people working in the chicken waste composting or the chicken waste processing center for production of animal feed and pet feeds. And another set of people working for production of compost. Means it come around 50,000, 60,000 people already got job through this decentralized waste management. It is not included for the alternate unit for the production of eco-friendly materials. Near 800 enterprise group already created by the Kudumbashree mission. Kudumbashree mission is one of the poverty alleviation mission in Kerala. Their major intervention is to creation of job for the poor people. In their activity, this production of alternate product is one a major area. Now it come to 800 entrepreneurs. Means if you take the door-to-door service, source level composting, and the production of new materials or no feed materials or food materials from the waste, and also alternative products and alternative services also. Means alternative services also emerging for the zero waste component. Just look, if a marriage party, they need for waste management and also reusable vessels.
That's fantastic.
Yes, that kind of services also emerged. Means now my quick assessment, the zero waste approach or decentralized waste management approach already created more than 50,000 employment in Kerala. That's first. And another area is that it is promoting the agriculture also. Means already create the compost, bio-organic waste compost is producing by the municipalities and panchayat. That naturally promoting the agricultural.
Great. So the opportunities seem to be endless. Endless opportunity.
Yes, the land, the last one is that very interesting things. During the COVID period, all the households are initiated some kind of gardening, vegetable gardening, some activities. There they are using their own compost from the homemade compost for the farming. Means this decentralized waste management actually helping to create a responsible citizen. That is very important. Means the persons, the zero waste approach, actually, it is a good tool for the citizenship education. Means you need to take responsibility for the your environment, and also you need to take responsible for your waste, and also you need to ensure the clean environment. These are the citizen responsibility. Means the zero waste approach is actually it is a good tool for creating responsible citizenship. That is a very important.
Great. Thank you so much. I think this is really fantastic because it's opening up really a very bigger lens. I mean, I know that Kerala is a big state with over 30 million people, but looking at what you're talking, this is a single project that is providing employment, and adding the figures you're giving together, this is close to 10,000 or even more. And this is really a huge opportunity. And if you have multiple of these projects spread across the state, this could really unlock a lot of income generation opportunities for many young people, particularly, but also women who are involved in this, who typically face gender sort of discrimination and other forms of inequality in society. So really, congratulations on that work. I think this is very fantastic. There is something that you mentioned, which I also find very important, sort of this citizen-led, sort of people-led approach. And this is something that I'm very familiar with, because when we started our zero waste work in Ghana, for instance, most of it was really starting together with youth in communities, in schools, in churches, in religious groups, and really having them be really participatory in every step of the process, such that there is shared ownership of the project and the approach. And at some point, you really have a zero waste sort of a community or an environment where everyone feels responsible for working on this and making it a dream that comes true. So that is really an important part of this process, which I think is very important that you share this with us. Iryna, I will quickly come to you, and I think there's a very important lens to what everyone, of course, is sort of in sharing solidarity with you in sort of, and like you said yourself, it's very beautiful to see or receive all the nice messages and messages of comfort, support, encouragement to Ukraine. But how does zero waste help in emergency response, right? For a country that is currently sort of having to deliver multiple emergency response to communities. How is zero waste making that work easier for you, for your community, and for people who live, particularly also in the hotspot areas where life could be very, very difficult if there are multiple multiple crises happening. So it will be very interesting to hear this from your side, and I think the audience could also really learn from how this really relates to the current context in Ukraine, and if there are any sort of lessons that we can learn from there in terms of really making sure that, you know, everything is connected, right? Instability, but also disaster response, and being able to prevent these disasters if probably zero waste measures are already in place. So over to you, and really looking forward to your insights on this.
We are a bit luckier in Lviv because city is situated 60 kilometers to the western border, and Lviv became a hotspot for refugees starting from the beginning of this full scale of the war. Around 6 million people now the Ukraine, and most of them came through the city. And our city is around, in normal time, around 800,000 people, hosted 2 million people daily through the first months of war. Of course, it had a huge waste impact on the city, especially in terms of organic waste and single-use waste. But through our connection developed prior with businesses, especially the one that provide restaurants, cafes, and work, we learned and worked together on different ways how to provide food to refugees with reusable tableware, reusable cups, reusable system of providing food. And it proved to help also cut the food waste in such a situation. War started in a very cold period of time, February, and a lot of refugees came to the city through the railway station. So we piloted distribution of reusable cups there, so that every person that gets to the train station gets its own cup, and then through the whole way from shelters to border crossing to other countries, they can have on one hand drinks with themselves, always something to drink, but on the other hand don't use the single-use cups all the way. And these are the quite simple examples how when you think about introducing reusable solutions around, you can actually provide a better and more caring way help to those in need. Another big area of work was also supporting refugees, mainly females and parents with a small kid through reusable sanitary products, because in the time of crisis these are also very, very needed, and especially things like menstrual cups can be really useful because you always have them with yourself. Of course, the situation differs from the a city like Lviv, which as we are jokes in this time are here, oh, we are fine, we have only occasional infrastructure bombing. So but for cities, of course, where the more a lot of housing is destroyed, the situation is different, but still quite a lot of people through reusable solution can get access to the the necessities. And we have all together learned how to provide this help with a reusable solution. Another area which is very important is the oldest culture and infrastructure of donating and repairing things around. Because when you have such a big influx of people, other citizens of Lviv and people from other parts of the country start donating clothes, start donating different household items, especially dishes, cutlery, cups, to establish kitchens in the hostel, refugee camp. So the better the infrastructure, the more common these good practices are in the city, the more faster you can get the response, and people will get what they need. On the other hand, we learned in Lviv that we are not prepared, for example, for the influx of this type of humanitarian aid. And especially when there is a need to sort all sorts of clothes, and when it's not seasonal or something like that. And on one hand, it's heartbreaking that you can't use all the good things that had been provided by other people because you just don't lack capacity in this time of crisis of sorting them. So that's why developing and investing into good second-hand practices in the city can also be extremely important during the emergency time, providing response. Probably I'll stop here.
Yes, thank you. No, it's just incredible hearing you, because I did a lot of work on disaster management from the climate side, and typically, like what you said, when a crisis happens, everyone wants to help in many cases, and you get a lot of influx of resources, materials, and a lot of things that the local context might not be ready to receive. And in those situations, you could even get an overflow of them that could lead to secondary impacts after the crisis is gone, right? So the fact that this thinking is already there, and being able to tackle that by really reinforcing approaches like this, I think that is very visionary, because I can say for sure that in the most recent Humanitarian Network Partnership Week, which brings together humanitarian workers, so you get a Red Cross and a bunch of these really big humanitarian agencies coming together, the issue of plastics is still a major concern. And yet their way of helping is you got to get these things in, because people need to live and people need to survive, right? But the aftermath of that is always something that gets left behind, because people are safe, we leave out, but then the materials stay locally. So it's really impressive to really hear from you this thinking, which I find very, very important, that you're already thinking around this. I think that moving on from this, where I would want to steer us into you, Kira, is really around sort of this topic, which I already mentioned, around inequality within this work, right? So we know that the waste sector as a whole faces a lot of social inequalities. And at the same time, when we talk about even the urban context, you got cities, but you didn't have the urban area as a whole. And there could be so much attention on the city itself, but then the urban network that influence the city could be very left out, and no support could go there. So how do we make sure that while we drive this agenda and push it forward, policies are really taking into consideration the major areas where investors and city mayors and governments and would want to put their money in, but also not neglecting the different sort of social inequalities, whether demographic and other factors that could really leave people behind and make zero waste maybe not even fruitful for them. How do we really make sure that this is addressed? And given that you work on this really broadly, it would be great to hear your perspective on that. And also to flag that I really see the whole incineration battle in the chat, really admirable. Keep it going. It's really fantastic. But Kira, I'll leave it to you now to sort of really unpack the policy angle and social inequalities when it comes to this work.
Thank you, Joshua. And I think the thing that is always important to start with is recognizing our history and our context. Because if we don't understand how inequalities have been shaped in a city, we really run the risk of thinking that we have excellent solutions that we can just sort of parachute in. But, you know, absolutely right, as you said, they might land very differently and even unintentionally exclude. You know, in South Africa, colonialism and apartheid was also an exercise in spatial segregation. And that's a legacy that stays in our cities. So what you have here is primarily, you know, communities who've been racialized as Black or Indian and colored. These are the terms that South Africa uses, have historically had very poor service delivery, continue to be the spaces where there's very little service around waste, but are also the communities on the front line of pollution. So when we want to bring in a zero waste, you know, practice, then we must do it in a way which ensures inclusion and justice. And what is fantastic about this report is just recognizing how important waste pickers are, actually, as in our city, certainly almost the single-handedly recycling on a scale which is just incredible to witness, but receive very little thanks and generosity from the state on the incredible work they do, the social and environmental good that they do. So in unequal spaces, then you have to start by speaking to the people who are directly involved and also the people who have the most to lose by change. So these workers are informal, they don't have any social protections. We have a wonderful new guideline that our national government brought in that is meant to integrate waste pickers. It did so in communication with waste pickers, which is fantastic, right? But what we don't have yet is any implementation at a municipal level. And it's here, I think, that the work needs to be done. How do you make municipal officials or local government comfortable in engaging to ensure that you've got justice with zero waste? I will say something more that can feel a bit uncomfortable, but even, for example, we too want a ban on single-use plastic. But when you work in the informal sector in urban spaces like street traders or street cooks, you know, there's a heavy reliance on single-use plastic. So if we're going to do this, we must also first speak to those street traders, the street cooks that are selling on the street. What will this mean for them? How willing are they to change? How could they be part of the solution? I mean, often there are such innovative practices on the ground that just aren't taken into account. If we think that, you know, we've got solutions that are bringing in big technology rather than working with the livelihoods and the logics of how people have already constructed an existence in our cities. So it's just, we have to remember that. So we have to start with engaging with the people who have the most to lose. Yeah.
No, I mean, thanks for sharing this, Kira, because the core of what you're saying is really, I think, learning and unlearning at the same time, because, you know, you got politicians and policymakers who have been here for a while. There's this new development which is happening, which has really implications. And I believe that some policymakers see these challenges you're talking about, but it's also a question of capacity, understanding, and really being able to learn the new frameworks that could really allow them to tackle these issues. And I've seen this with the youth movement, youth climate movement as well, that in many cases governments are like, we want to work with youth. But at the same time, there's just so many groups, so many organizations, everyone wants something. I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to focus and do my job, right? And I think this could be the same for city mayors and policymakers within this space, where there could be so many different requests, of course, resistance from incinerator groups, who are also sometimes very influential, not sometimes, in many cases, very, very influential and really cause resistance. So, and they are all claiming to be wanting the good of society, which makes it really difficult. And the more we engage and really provide a space for capacity building, learning and unlearning the practices in the past, which has not really delivered social impact to communities, that'd be very fantastic. Really, thanks to all of you for sharing this with us. I think this is very, very fantastic. And I see the discussion going on in the chat. Some of the Q&A has been coming on and has been responded. So really thanks to everyone. I know we are tight on time. Yes.
Do you get a few minutes for me? Few minutes.
Yes. Yeah. Let me quickly give sort of a bit of a next step, and then I'll come to you. So, Marielle, I would want you to briefly, after Jagajeevan has finished, to really talk about COP27. I mean, it's the next big thing on the agenda now. Many of us are probably going to be there. What should people expect? What should be the advocacy for every person going to COP? What can they really advocate for? What should they look forward to? What should be their key demands and messages to their government? I think that is very important to share. So Jagajeevan, over to you. And then afterwards, Marielle, you can really wrap up and give us some context on COP27.
No. First of all, I need how this report helped to me. That is the things I need to convey to you. You see, this is the report actually more helpful to make materials for advocacy. That is very important, very useful material. And second one is this is very helpful to develop capacity building material for the people who are working in zero waste sector in Kerala. That is very important. You see, in Kerala, Harita Karma Sena, this is the door-to-door service providers group. It will come 30,000, and also other supporters, facilitators, it will come near 2,000, at different level. So a capacity building material creation, this will be very helpful. The third one is to, it is more helpful to develop a new protocol for the waste management program for the local government. That is very important. Means we need to create a new operational guideline for the local government. This report may be helpful to us. That is the last one is that it is more helpful to develop citizen education program. Means that is why that's why I requested Joshua I need to comment on this, because the people who are behind need to know about the benefit of the report. The last one is that we need to develop some kind of a detailed material for, you see, if the state or the local government or any government will take initiative for the zero emulsion approach, how it benefit to the states, that is very important. That we need to take to out very clearly. You see, what are the opportunity for creating employment? That is very important. Means all the governments are very concerned about the creation of new employment. The source level compost, if you promote the source level composting, it will open the new enterprise opportunity for production of inoculum and also the branded compost. And third one is the organic farming. This is the area for the employment creation. The second one is what mentioned by the Iryna, the service enterprises. That is more important. The reusable vessels, utensils, and the different kind of materials, and also decorative materials. That is also another important things. Wherever the functions, any kind of function, community gathering, the people need for the decoration. Now they are using the plastic. If we can use eco-friendly material, then the production of the raw material and also the production of decorative material, environment-friendly decorative materials in another thing, and decorating service is the another area. This the service enterprise is a very good opportunity for it will create from this role. The third one is the collection units for the non-bio waste, different kind of non-bio waste. And non-bio waste collection system and the recycling and the upcycling enterprises. These are more creating more opportunities. The fourth one, the alternative products for the every segment, the food sector to all the cloth, all kind of area we need the alternative.
Yeah.
Alternate products are two kind of enterprises will develop. One is the production of the raw material. You see, if you want to take the produce the material from the bamboo, need to increase the production of bamboo also. Means that will create another area, and also the production also will. And the last one is the pet animal feed we can produce from the fish, meat, waste. So this kind of a big directory we need to create, and need to create a network for technology transaction. Also need to think for the second phase of this report. I know the people who are working for the entire the world for this zero waste and zero emulsion approach need the mutual support for technology, and also the social engineering support also needed. With the major issue is that to overcome the block from the policymakers and funders, that this is very important things. My understanding now, the guy is trying to work among the international funding agency for to reduce the priority or to avoid the priority of the incineration funding. That is very important. That is why I'm happy
Great.
to appreciate the people who are behind this report. That is my that is why I'm taking the few minutes from Joe. Thank you for all.
Thank you so much. I mean, thanks for sharing. And I think there's one point that I would also want to emphasize, which is the collection part, and which also puts a lot of focus on the work of informal waste sector. At least in many places that I've seen zero waste working, it is their work that really enhances collection, and the right kind of collection that makes zero waste possible. So really credit to all the zero waste, all the waste workers that we have in our networks. And I think Kira also wrote in the chat that we are fortunate enough to have so many, all of us here, most of our work is really organizing informal waste workers and giving them sort of a much better and higher access and also opportunities to the work that they do, so that they can do it effectively and to support this agenda. So thank you very much. Marielle, please, over to you. If you could sort of really wrap up, summarize everything we've heard a little bit, but really focusing on COP27. What can we expect? What should we be advocating for? What should we really aim to have as an outcome? And what would GAIA be doing at COP?
Thank you very much. So yes, as I was saying, I think this COP27 is going to be remarkable because waste management is going to be on the agenda very much. The waste sector for two main things. One is that, as I was saying before, the host, the Egypt government, is launching the Global Waste Management Initiative, which is wanting to bring all African countries to commit to 50% recycling by 2050. This will bring waste management up in the agenda. And the key question here is what kind of driver is going to bring, really. Like, we know that at the COP, a really big topic in the agenda is climate finance. We know that climate change is basically caused by rich countries, sort of imposed and suffered by poor countries. And there's a question around environmental justice and climate justice that really is very important. And so when we are talking about climate finance in this context, that climate finance is really important at COPs, and we are seeing that actually the climate finance that we see for methane mitigation, it's going mainly to waste to energy incineration. And this is a report that came out last week from the Climate Policy Initiative, a think tank in the US. We are seeing how when we go to the COP and we are advocating for this climate justice reparation, the loss and damage, climate finance that it's owed to developing countries, we need to make sure that this climate finance really goes to the right solutions, because so far what we have seen is the climate finance really being exacerbating the problems that have caused climate change. And we know the waste to energy incineration is a source of greenhouse gas solutions. So we are hoping that as we see waste management coming up in the agenda at the COP, and we see all governments bringing forward climate policies at the national level, and we see cities, and we see that everyone cares so much about climate change and making sure that we do the right thing, we really need to make sure as well to bring this information that we have around zero waste. And we're really promoting the zero waste solutions that we see that have to bring the people in, look after the informal recyclers, make sure that it provides livelihoods, improves health and all these additional benefits, and make sure that all these policy and climate finance is working together towards these right solutions. I think this is it's very important that we create a virtuous circle, bringing all the factors together to make sure that we educate our policymakers. We don't let them fall in the traps that the industry will put there for them, convincing them that actually there's all these fantastic industrial solutions which we know don't work most of the time. So this is for COP27. There's some questions in the Q&A, but tell me, Joshua, what do you want to do with this?
So thanks, Marielle, for giving us this context. We are tight on time, so we have to close soon. So this was going to happen. You have a contact detail that's going to come up on the screen. There are very fantastic questions that really needs to be addressed. And I think I'm happy for us to keep this conversation going, particularly questions around energy from organic waste or energy from mixed waste. What is good, what is bad, what should be supported, what should not be supported, inequalities, big topic again, inclusion and all of that with regards to COP as well. And also people asking questions, seeking connections and support for the work that they do. Please do send an email to us. You see the slide on the screen has an email. We would want to keep everyone engaged and keep this conversation going as much as possible, support as many of you as possible to really start piloting and trying out, getting evidence and scaling. This is for me the main thing, that we need to scale and we need to really get on from even having this as sort of minor case studies, but have everyone really implementing this and having zero waste as a very fundamental mainstream solution. So really thanks everyone for joining. And I will go to Iryna to say a few words before we close up the room. And also I'll come to Kira for your last words as well.
Thank you, Joshua. Just finalizing thing that zero waste approach is also about the food security in the world, and we must to switch from current waste practices to more separate organic collection and composting to put back organics into soil and maintain their fertility, especially here in Ukraine, because large nitrogen fertilizer production plants had been destroyed, and now is also very important issue how we actually combine both agricultural policy and waste policy in both climate mitigation way and in better waste management practices, and that's where zero waste also can help. But I would like to tell everyone that every single-use piece of plastic is also helping Ukraine now, because it's all made of oil, and it all helps to break this dependence on natural gas and oil, which is basically paying for this war. So go zero waste and help us win, help democracy win.
Thank you. Kira, final words.
Thanks, Joshua. I just maybe just to say thank you to everyone. I'm also just looking at the chat and just such wonderful sharing between this group today. And I think, yeah, these are complex, tricky questions, but to get through it, the more we share and learn from each other, the more sure we're going to work towards a more fair, just world, I think. So thank you.
Great. Thanks everyone for joining. Really fantastic having you share your perspective, learn from the report. Please remember to download the report, get the details of it, join the advocacy, join the movement. Let's make zero waste possible. It was really a pleasure having all of you here. Thank you so much to Marielle, to Kira, to Iryna, to Jagajeevan, all of you for really being here and sharing your perspective to us. And ultimately, thanks to GAIA for putting this together. So thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and let's keep in touch. Thank you.